Assalamu alaikum. I hope you all are doing great. Welcome to Unrushed with Nadia, where we slow down, dive deep, and let the conversation flow. Today, I have an amazing guest. She's a kind human being and a very competent international news anchor and journalist based in Berlin. She has extensive experience in global news reporting and is also a trainer, sharing her expertise with future media professional. Let's welcome Anja Kueppers.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hi, Anja. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you very much. I'm great. It's dark and dreary outside, so I'm happy to be inside where it's warm and cozy.
Yes, and in fact, I was out for a jog shortly, and then I had a recording, and I was running faster than some of the pets.
Good for you for getting out into the rain. It was a dark and dreary day here in Berlin, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know, if I do not go out, I just get very sad and depressed. So I make sure I go out once a day.
It's really important. I go walking in the woods with my dog most mornings, and honestly, it's such an important part of my day. It's really good for one's mental health.
It's really good. I completely agree with you here. So you are an international news anchor, and you have such great career, and you have covered some very tough stories down the years also. And how do you mentally and emotionally prepare for reporting on sensitive or very impactful issues?
So this is such an important question to start this off with, because what I think is so important when you're a journalist, when you're working in the news, there's so much noise, there's so much movement, there are so many stories, and unfortunately, a lot of them are not happy stories. And that's not easy when you're dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. You know, I work in a newsroom with dozens of other colleagues, and we have hourly live news shows, and we're doing live interviews. If I just think about the headlines today, there was talking about the bomb blast in Delhi, talking about a bomb blast in Pakistan with people who died, the effects of a hurricane or a typhoon. These are all not very pleasant stories that are the news headlines. And what I think is really important, and I have to say that I find it quite difficult. I have had many moments where I've really struggled with the emotional impact of these news stories. And I think there are two things. One, we have to sort of look behind the headlines. It's very easy to say 15 killed or thousands displaced. Each one of those are individuals with their own lives and their own stories and their own families. And so out of respect to the people who are in those news stories, it is up to us to cover these stories in a respectful and balanced way. And I think I have had to practice keeping, let's say, a professional distance. And I understand now, I used to get very, very drawn into these stories and quite emotional. And I do understand now that, a professional distance, keeping empathy and keeping a focus on the individual, but a professional distance helps you to convey the story and the important details in a better way so that the audience can understand it better. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. I should say also, though, that journalists being faced with all of these difficult stories, of course, we're in a safe newsroom in a warm studio, so my heart always goes out to the people who are actually living these stories. But it is also important for us to look after ourselves. We were just saying, how important it is to get outside into the fresh air, to get into nature, to look after yourself and your own mental health so that you can actually do a better job.
That's correct, Anja. In fact, I'll tell you that because I studied law and we had to do a practice for 2 years. And every day I would come home crying.
Yeah.
I would my mother to hug me and calm me down for 2 to 3 hours. And in fact, I was just speaking to a lot of other people also, including Stephanie Kompel. She is the former gender equality ambassador from Australia. And what we were discussing that in this era, in the modern times, women and girls, they are facing domestic violence and the numbers are increasing, and natural calamity is something else. And then you have to face these kind of things. And then there are other bullyism, there are other challenges that you have to face with your own personal struggles. And you are completely right that it's very important to stay empathetic, but keep a professional distance so that you cannot bring it back to your own family every day. It's impossible, and you cannot keep it circulating it in your head, and it's very difficult. But you need to learn to detach. I agree.
That's it. It is really important to switch off. And I found I work in shifts. So the way that our newsroom works, it's 24 hours. And we do early shifts or late shifts or night shifts. And the good thing about that, the bad thing is that you have to get up in the middle of the night, or you go, you're at work at night. But the good thing about it is that at the end of the shift, that's it. You pass the job on to the next person and you come home. And that, I appreciate that. And I try hard that when I'm at home, then my focus is on me, my family, my pets, what I'm cooking for dinner, because that then takes priority.
And this is positive balance, which is really, really needed.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And your career has taken you across multiple global platforms. And what is the biggest change that you have seen in journalism over the past decade, and how have you adapted to it?
Yeah,
Especially now.
there's so much change in journalism right now, isn't there? Yeah, it's really, I think we're actually living the change at DW right now. So DW is where I work. It's Germany's international broadcaster, and we broadcast internationally. So people in Germany don't watch us. I work for the English service, and we broadcast internationally. And we are actually in the middle of a huge transformation where we are shifting from linear TV to social media. And, obviously the point of that is that we want to reach as many people as possible. And the fact is that people, not everybody sits down at 8 p.m. in front of their TVs and watches the nightly news. Of course, now people have their tablets and their mobile phones, or, they're looking for news on demand. That is why we're not the only broadcaster who's obviously changing. And I think that is the sort of the key of how journalism is evolving at the moment, in that it's no longer the broadcaster that is sending out information and the viewers will take what they're given. It's so much more interactive now. We want to interact more with our viewers and readers. We want to know, what they are looking for. We want to know their opinions. We want to include that in the way that we broadcast and the information that we broadcast. I think it's not always easy, let's say, as a journalist. So I've been working in the newsroom here in Berlin for 10 years, and we've built this operation. It's a great place, fabulous colleagues, and it's working well. And now we're about to really change the way we work. And that can be scary and a little bit unnerving. And we all have to learn new skills, But I think the key is, if you, a lot of people who want to be journalists are quite curious and are quite open and are always interested in the new. So I think if if we can remember that, if we can sort of focus on that and stay curious and open to the new in terms of how our work is now changing, that will hopefully make it go in a right direction. And at the end of the day, our aim is to produce good, relevant content. And so hopefully that's what's going to keep going, no matter how it's getting to people. So, I'm fingers crossed. I'm hopeful and positive that it's all going to work, but it's going to be a lot of change for us in the coming year.
Anya, I have seen that, we all have noticed this, that the 9 p.m., 8 p.m. news is totally fading away, especially with mobile phones and social media. And with that came a huge influx of influencer and content creators who do not do their research. They just are picking things and trying to create a chaos. And then there are journalists like you who are working hard, working on stories for days, and then coming up with reports and news. How do you see this? And the influx of information is huge. And do you see that sometimes your work is disturbed because there is wrong information also, or information which has less research, or nobody has worked hard, they just have millions of followers, they do their content creation, and then boom, everybody's believing that?
Yeah, there's a lot of points there. I think it's obviously, as we were saying, the media landscape is completely changing. So it's not just the big broadcasters who are putting information out there and everyone else needs to listen and take what they broadcast. So it's a good thing. It's a democratic thing that the way that the media works these days is that anybody can have a platform and can voice what they think is important. And so I would say that a lot of content creators aren't creating chaos. They are talking and offering relevant information. So I would say it is a good thing that this whole news space is becoming more democratic. Of course, the challenge is that there are content creators out there who relevant and fact-based content, and then of course there are others who don't. And you're right, there's a lot of noise, and that's what makes our work harder now, because we have to cut through that. And the whole point of DW as a broadcaster is that we want to broadcast fact-based, democratic news without lots of noise to inform people. And so that may not always be the most exciting or the loudest thing, but we have to find a way of cutting through the noise. So, and that's, what we were just talking about. That's why we're changing the way we do things, so that we reach people where they are. There's lots of research about the fact that people are turning off the news, and that younger people get their news from TikTok and won't watch news programs on the TV. Well, the hope is that if we produce fact-based content for TikTok, people might stumble across that, might hear about it, might start going to that for news that they know they can rely on. So again, I think it's, the change is definitely an opportunity. It doesn't make things easier, but I think it's something not to see as a bad thing. It's something to we got to lean in, and we got to work with this new space that we have now.
Great. I do see a positive thing from this, Anya, that you believe that the technology is changing, the worlds are changing, that people are changing. But of course, it brings an opportunity for organizations like DW to adapt the change. And of course, people remain their consumer at the end of the day. What medium they are using, organizations can easily adapt to those. So I do think that there is opportunity also.
Yeah. I don't know how easy it is to adapt. It's hard work to change, but they have to adapt, and they are.
They are. Because this is also a race. Who will adapt first?
That's right. Absolutely. It's always a race, isn't it? Broadcasted, they're all changing. They're all doing it in slightly different ways. It's a matter of time. Who knows who does it better or who gets to the audiences faster, but everyone's in the race.
Everyone is in the race. And like breaking news can be very intense internally also. And can you share a time when you had to think quickly to deliver a story under pressure, and you had to really calm your emotions down?
Every day. Every day I have to do 3 yoga breaths before I go live on air, just to be grounded and calm myself down. I mean, every day I have to think on my feet, and there is a level of pressure because I'm on live TV, and anything can happen on live TV, and you have to be prepared for that. And I think the trick is there not to be scared of it, because it is going to happen. Things are going to go wrong, and it's our job to roll with it. There's one situation I remember where I was in the newsroom. I was just coming out of a live show, and I had about 20 minutes until the next one, and I was told that I would be interviewing Imran Khan, the former Pakistani Prime Minister, in the next show. And it was the moment where he was saying that he was about to be arrested, and he was doing interviews from his home. And I'd come from a TV show that was full of other news, and I had 20 minutes before I was going to go back into the studio. And that's the moment where you do have to stay calm, and it's a teamwork, because we've got a brilliant team of producers, colleagues who are working on the content, helping you prepare the questions, thinking through how this interview should go. But then at the end of the day, you've got to go in there and then think on your feet, because of course you don't know in this case what he was going to say, or what information he was going to offer. That was an exciting moment, because of course you have to come across as knowledgeable and professional and calm. But yeah, I'll never forget that. There was another situation I'm just thinking of now, where we were using a different studio from the one we usually use. It's 3 stories up. And I had forgotten that in this other studio there's a green screen. And so when you sit in front of a green screen, you can't wear anything that's green, because that will essentially make your body disappear. And so I went up to the studio for my first show, and I was wearing a green blouse. And I walked in, and I just thought, oh my goodness. And it was 5 minutes before the start of the live show. So I ran faster than I think I've ever done, down 3 flights of stairs into the changing room, put on a red blouse, ran up the stairs again, and sat down at 3 seconds before we went live.
And
And somehow I managed to say, "Welcome, this is DW News," without coughing and spluttering. But yeah, there are lots of situations like that.
so in
Where
3 minutes, in 3 seconds, in fact, you had to catch your breath. You had to make sure you have on the right side of the.
yeah, yeah, that's it. And and then there are other very different situations where, for example, it was the German general election earlier this year, and that was a situation where we were 3 hours. So a couple of colleagues and we were in the studio in a live situation for 3 hours, and so that wasn't one of those sort of short, intense, adrenaline-filled situations. That was something where you really did have to sort of think on your feet constantly for 3 hours, because again, we didn't know what the election results were going to be. We didn't know what was going to happen. There wasn't really a script because we didn't know what was going to happen. And so again, a really great team effort where we've got our producer in our ear telling us, okay, this is coming up next. This is the result. This is, okay, we're going to go to this correspondent now. Okay, we're going to bring in an analyst now. Really lots of adrenaline, but great fun. Great fun.
Yeah, this is what I say. There are people sometimes who say, what have you started? And I tell them, you have no idea how fun it is at the end of the day. It's fun. It just
Great
fills
fun.
energy in me. I have never been happier in my life all this time.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I also think it depends on profile of the guest also. Like somebody like Imran, who has a huge persona, huge fan following, and everybody knows him. And I'll give you an example. In 2020, I came to Nuremberg, Germany. I had a conference there to attend, and there was a Japanese driver. He picked me from the airport, and I just called my mom to tell I was safe and I was going to my hotel. Said, "You're from Pakistan," and I said, "Yes." He said, "Imran Khan," and I felt proud that at that moment, somebody.
Good.
I would have never thought, at a remote location, somebody would just say Imran Khan, and this is how you feel good, because of course, political differences are at one side, but he did bring the World Cup, and he built the cancer hospital. Somebody so huge and using influence to build cancer hospital, so it was huge. I would like to know, because you have traveled in different countries and you have worked with people who are from different cultures also, and working with the teams who come from all over the world. How do you manage culture differences while keeping your reporting objective and accurate? Does this happen?
I mean, it's a really relevant question for someone who works at a broadcaster like I do. So DW is completely international. I started off, so DW is based in Berlin and in Bonn in the west of Germany. So I started in Bonn many years ago, and I remember thinking it's a bit like it's like a little mini United Nations, because you really do see people from every part of the globe there, and you have the chance to work with them. I love that. I see that as a huge opportunity. It is such a great way to learn about how the world works, because you are working with people who speak different languages from different cultures and who think differently, and it's not better or worse, it's just different. And so, working together is a really good way of sort of expanding one's own knowledge. And then there's always, when there are differences, there's always the chance for conflict, isn't there? And so that is something that, I mean, your question is, how do we sort of ensure the integrity of our reporting? Good journalism means that you give equal space for the different voices. And that's really the only way that you can offer viewers the chance to make up their own minds. So, there has to be space given. And I believe that's what absolutely we try and do. I know we definitely try and do that in the newsroom where I work, is that we give the differing voices space, and we have to stay neutral, and we try and do that to the very best of our ability. And it's kind of that simple. You have to give a diversity of voices. You have to give all sides the chance to speak, and then you have to offer perspective, obviously, and then it's up to the viewer to make up their own minds.
Anya, I do see you're a very positive person and you are very welcoming of people from diverse backgrounds also. In fact, when I was writing to you, I thought, will she come? Will she not come? Will she come? Will she not come? And I said,
Of
okay,
course.
I have to send the I have to send that message. That was really, really important. And I do see, like you have this light and spark on your face also. And I'm sure your family is very blessed to have you around. Your friends are blessed to have you around. And I'm so glad that I met you and I look forward to meeting you in person.
You're very kind. I'd love to meet you too. We'll have to have a coffee in Berlin.
Yes, sure. And Anya, I'll come back to that question that with the rise of the social media, now people are consuming news in a new way. How do you
Yeah.
think that affected trust in traditional media? Because traditional media is equal to trust. Whatever there was a time, whatever comes at the news at 9 p.m. is talk of that's the fact. People believed in, people had faith, and now it's a lot of news. And how do you see, and what role journalists play? And do you think they have to work harder in rebuilding to maintain distrust?
Yeah, I think trust is really the key word here. And it's great that you've brought it up because this is the big thing right now, isn't it? That there's, journalists aren't trusted in the way that they used to be. Media organizations aren't trusted in the way that they used to be. And, there is, I believe that a very big part of media organizations, a journalist's job is to rebuild, if not maintain, trust, because otherwise nobody's going to be coming to you for information. Nobody's going to be listening to you. I'm going to talk about something here called constructive journalism. It's a movement that's really gaining momentum at the moment, and it's something that DW has really embraced. And essentially, what constructive journalism is good journalism. It's about providing context, different perspectives, diverse voices. It's about showing paths, not just showing problems, but showing paths to action, offering hope, and building trust. And it's a way, it's the way that we sort of talk about it is it's like wearing your constructive journalism glasses. So it's not, some people say or think, oh, well, that's a sort of a cute story about puppies and kittens at the end of a news show. That's not what it is at all. Every story, no matter how difficult, can be viewed through a constructive journalism angle. And it is essentially better reporting and giving people a sense of this is not just something bad that's happened, or this is not just a problem, but this is what different people think about it. And these are ways that this problem could essentially be solved or ways forward. And I think a big issue, and this is why a lot of people are switching off the news, is because they feel disempowered. And this is a really, really big problem. And in fact, I sort of see this as this is what gives my work at the moment a lot of meaning, is the idea that if we can empower people, give them the sense of it's not a bleak, dark world. There are many problems and there are many opportunities and there are many good things and good people and inspiring stories out there. And if we can offer that to people, then that will give people the sense that they too can be part of a solution. And so I think, this whole, the change in journalism and social media and the way the journalists are seen now, it comes back down to sort of to human nature, really. We're all people. We're talking to each other. I'm offering information as my role as a journalist. But, if it's for the good of the world and for the good of everyone in it, if we build trust and build better communication, then we're all going to feel better. And that's really my focus now, is this constructive journalism and this sense of we have to create a sense of trust and well-being in the way that we offer information.
I agree. In fact, I'm sure you also have noticed that people, general public at masses follow the journalist and they respect them a lot. And once the trust is built, they believe in their stories and they follow them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the ideal.
That's the ideal. And I'll also ask you that you also train the future journalist. And what is the most important or mindset, especially in this modern for aspiring journalists to have today?
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit earlier. I think, it's just this sense of it doesn't matter whether, things are different these days compared to 30 years ago or 50 years ago. A good journalist, I think, is curious, is interested, wants to learn, doesn't take no for an answer, and wants to learn about how other people do things and why things are happening. And these are some basic mindsets and ways of being that it doesn't matter whether you're working for TV or for a newspaper or online or whatever. If you have that openness and that curiosity and self-confidence. So what we really notice is that younger people, younger journalists, are not used to sort of making a call, getting on the phone, actually talking to people, because everything's online now, isn't it? I'll send a text rather than making a phone call.
Yeah.
You talk to people, make that personal contact, and that really gets you more into the story and gets you further. And I think also I would say that, I remember when I was graduating from university, and I was told so many times, well, you can't, I mean, it's very difficult getting a job in journalism. I mean, you're not going to do it. Don't never take that as a given. Don't accept a no. Always push, and I'm sure that you will find different answers. So that's whether you're looking for your first job, or whether you're chasing a story, or whether you're trying to find out information. Keep going, and don't take what you get as a given. Always keep asking.
That's right. Anya, I'll ask a personal question. Like being in a public eye can be challenging also, and you also have to face some kind of scrutiny also. Sometimes we appear very friendly because we are kind and empathetic, and others think that we're not serious for the job. Do you think this happens to women more? I'll give you my personal example. This happens to me because sometimes people think that I'm not very responsible. They have no idea that I'm 100% or 1,000% more responsible than the poker face people, and more empathetic also. Have you ever experienced this in your career, or what is your message for the people if they are experiencing it? Despite we say that we are in modern
That's a big question.
people are more empathetic, but still the challenges person to person are increasing due to lack of communication.
I think if I've understood your question correctly, I mean, I don't know if I come under scrutiny. I mean, I do my job, I'm on screen, and then I go home. So, I don't get, I don't get fan mail. I don't really get. I mean, certainly when we, put our segments on YouTube, and then there's lots of comments under the YouTube segment, but that's more about the people we interview rather than us, as it should be, because obviously we're not the anchor, isn't the story. It's the interview partner who's the story. I think, as with everything, and you mentioned the fact as a woman, I think it's really important to know who you are, to be self-confident, to be generous with yourself, and to look after yourself. Because whatever job you're doing, whether it's a journalist or whether it's a lawyer or whether it doesn't matter where you work or what you do, there's a lot of pressures on us, on women, to be very good and to look very good and to have lots of energy and to always be there and always say yes and always be ready and willing. And I think it certainly took me a long time to understand that if I don't take time to look after myself, I can't do anything for anyone. And that's a really important message. In fact, I was listening to a conversation you had with an Australian woman. I think her name was Dr. Julia Hammett. I wrote it down.
Yeah.
Jamart, Dr. Julia. And she was also saying, she was a filmmaker, I think. And she was saying, if you don't take time for yourself, then, you can forget everything else. And I have always, I can be quite a busy person, so I can do a lot and achieve a lot. But it took me a while and a few not so easy experiences to understand that, we will crash and burn if we don't take time for ourselves. So I really love, as I said earlier, my walks with my dog in the woods close to where we live here in Berlin. There are woods and lakes, and it's beautiful nature, and I love that time because that really gives me a chance to breathe and just be in nature. And switching off, taking time with my husband and my children, taking time with my friends, that's what's sustaining, and that's the most important thing. And I'm not that interested in what other people think or judge, or because that's not my life. And I think, if we've got our core that's strong and self-confident, then people can say what they want. It doesn't really matter.
So what lesson I took from this conversation is we can never fail ourselves.
Absolutely. I'll
Agreed.
remember that. That's a great way of saying it.
Thank you so much. Anya, it was lovely talking to you. And one thing that I would like to ask you, that what is a story or a subject that you would like to work in the next 5 years? Like this is the goal. You have done so much, but still there are stories that, okay, this I should be doing in next 5 years, or a personality that you would like to interview.
Okay. We've talked about this when I was talking about constructive journalism earlier, and this idea of creating journalism and stories that, offer perspective, offer hope, that are empowering. So I get incredible inspiration and hope from stories about nature, about the environment. I'm really, really fascinated and passionate about a movement called rewilding, which is essentially about giving back to nature, allowing nature to just find its own way as opposed to us, controlling and conserving. And I find our natural world so beautiful and inspiring. And I think we can all learn so much from the world around us. We're very busy in our lives in cities and driving cars and going on trains. And, take your socks off and go and walk on the grass and just listen.
Yeah.
Things like that are so important. And it's so important to reconnect with our natural environment. For our children, for teenagers who spend a lot of time on screens these days, it's so important for our souls to reconnect with the natural world. And I definitely see myself working with an increasing focus on constructive stories, stories that offer hope and empowerment. And in particular, I would love to work more on environmental issues, because to me, if there's something that's important in the world that we live in, it's a healthy and strong natural environment. So that's something that I get a lot of inspiration from.
That's great, Anya. In fact, I'll agree with you. Our eyes are glued to the screen, and the screen is glued to our eyes. It's vice versa all the time, 24 hours. We wake up, we're like, one eye is open and we start watching, and until the phone drops, we do not sleep. And unfortunately, this is a disease with this generation, including me. And I do see you have a balanced approach towards life. So I do see you can never scroll on your phone like for unlimited time. How do you manage your children and the youngsters around you, and how do you manage them when you see they're constantly on phone? They live on phone.
Well, they don't live on their phones because we put rules and regulations in place. So, yeah, it's a really, really big challenge. I mean, every parent these days, I think, is battling with this challenge of screen time. And, because these devices are so addictive. And yet, this is where they spend their social lives now. My son meets his friends online and they play video games and they have so much fun and they're laughing and they're joking. So we don't want to take that away from them. But just like with everything, it's balance, isn't it? So it's learning that you have your screen time and then you put it away, and then you go and jump on the trampoline in the garden, or you come for a walk with your parents to walk the dog, or, there has to be that balance. I think it's important not to make it into a constant fight, because the kids are doing their best and they're lovely, and they've got to be at school all day, and they've got homework, and they're dealing with their own sort of pressures, which I think we have to remember. They're doing their best, and so it's up to us to sort of guide and help, as opposed to sort of tell them off for spending too much time on their screen. But there definitely have to be controls.
Thank you so much, Anya, for sharing us. So basically, you want to offer a solution to your viewers who are consuming your news with trust, and you want to have a very healthy relationship at home also. This is balancing approach. Trust me, this is what we really need, that because everybody is dealing with their own issues at their own levels, be it family, friends, or audience. Thank you so much. And I loved this conversation. And if you have any final feedback or message before we sign off.
Oh, goodness me. What can I say? It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation. It's so nice to, you are from Pakistan, you're living in Berlin. I was born in Australia. I grew up in England. I'm living in Berlin now. I have German parents, I should say, so I'm a international mix as well. It's always such a pleasure to have these kind of conversations and to share different perspectives. I think what I would say, and it was a thread running through our conversation actually, when you do a job, or when you're at the beginning and you're choosing the line of work that you want to go into, it's really important to not do what's expected of you or what you're told to do, but to listen to yourself and to know what you love and what inspires you. Because if you do work, if you follow a line of work that you feel is worthwhile and that gives you energy, you will succeed in that. I'm not going to say you're gonna earn millions. You might not earn millions, but you will succeed in it and you will feel fulfilled. And that's something that I feel really passionate about. I always wanted to be a journalist. My parents actually wanted me to be a lawyer. and I didn't listen to them. I wanted to be a journalist, and it took me a long time to get there. I do feel that good journalism can make a difference, and I do feel passionate about that. Would be my message. Do something that you're passionate about.
And this was wonderful. And thank you for sharing us that whatever we do, we should do it with an empathetic heart, hard work, and it should fulfill us.
Absolutely.
It should not leave a void even after being successful. So being successful and being fulfilled is really, really important. So this was a mix of interview for personal and professional life, and I loved this conversation. And I look forward to I look forward to connecting with you once again in 2026 for another interview.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was Anja Kueppers, and I will be back very soon with another amazing guest and another amazing conversation. Till then, bye bye.
Bye bye.